tefillah that people say before Sfiras HaOmer. In every siddur, you say printed, even siddurim that are not very Kabbalistic.
Oh, nobody said that.
Printed at the beginning of Sfiras HaOmer is L'Shem Yichud. What does this mean? Meaning, what exactly is being said in this tefillah of L'Shem Yichud? Now, we should point out that what's the controversy about L'Shem Yichud is that when you translate the words of L'Shem Yichud, let's consider here.
Isn't this Ashkenaz? They don't say it.
No, it's in the siddur.
They always start right away with the bracha.
Not by us.
They're in a rush to
It's,
get out.
we said-
If anything, you want to delay. Listen, when I grew up davening, they always used to say Aleinu before Sfiras HaOmer, just in case you needed
Push
that
it,
extra minute.
So there's reason to and reason not to. We'll talk about that la'alach in a couple of moments. But let's just, if you open up your standard art scroll siddur, Ashkenaz, Sfiras HaOmer, you have a Kabbalistic prayer that precedes the Sfiras HaOmer. What exactly is this Kabbalistic prayer? Says the L'Shem Yichud. L'Shem Yichud. Anybody has said L'Shem Yichud by Sfiras HaOmer, by anything else?
It's not enough time.
Right. There's not.
It looks
So
right to the
the other time that people get very into saying L'Shem Yichud is depending on which Haggadah you
It's
use.
kind of like Hindi Mukhanam Zuman, which also disappeared. Most people don't bother saying it.
Right.
They
Once
used
upon a
say
time,
it by
everybody used to sing it.
Haggadah,
Right.
By Shir Amalos, he would say
Yeah.
Hindi Mukhanam Zuman. What kind of supposed to say?
So we'll talk about the Hineni Mukhan Muzum part because that's also part of the L'Shem Yichud. But that nobody really yelled at about. There was no controversies about Hineni Mukhan Muzum. That's fine. The Noda B'Yehuda writes in Tshuva that he disagrees with the idea of saying L'Shem Yichud. He thinks that the whole thing is Meshuggah. Not just Meshuggah, he thinks that maybe it's Kfir.
Wow.
Why? Because every day we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Yes? That means that Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. He's one. There's only one God. Indivisible. Because Baruch Hu is one and only one. And here you have a prayer that says the following. L'Shem Yichud, for the sake of the unity of Kudshe B'richu, Shchinte, the Holy One, blessed be He, Shchinte, and His presence. B'dechilu, with fear, Urechimu, with love. Liyached, to unify Shem Yud Hey, the name Yud Hey, Bevav Hey, with Vav and Hey, B'yichud Shlim, in a complete unity, a total unity, B'Shem Kol Yisrael, in the name of all of the Jewish people. The Noda B'Yehuda wrote in the Tshuva that is insane. Why would a person say such a thing? God is one. How do you say, for the sake of the unity of God, He is unified? And nothing that you can do is going to disunify Him, and nothing that you're going to do is going to unify Him. Everybody hear the question here? Like, right? Like, I know you hear this shtick, I've got a point here. This became very popular in the days of the Noda B'Yehuda because that was around the same time as the Baal Shem Tov, where people started saying these tefillahs. Now, we should point out that many Mekubalim were saying these tefillahs for many generations before the Baal Shem Tov. But the Baal Shem Tov, to a large extent, colloquialized Kabbalah, meaning he taught people, when we'll talk about this Yichudim, to be miyached things in a way that only Mekubalim used to talk about and be able to do, or at least attempt to. And the Noda B'Yehuda argues that this is a hop, skip, and a jump into people thinking that God is more than one. That's dangerous. So much so that at the end of the tshuva, the Noda B'Yehuda writes, anybody know this Meister? This is a Valdic Meister. He quotes the pasuk, Yisharim Darkei Hashem, Tzadikim Yelchu Bam, V'chasidim Yichashvu Bam. Pasuk says, Yisharim Darkei Hashem, the ways of Hashem are straight, Tzadikim Yelchu Bam, Tzadikim should walk in them, U'Poshim Yichashvu Bam, and sinners will stumble over them. So he changed the word in the pasuk from Poshim to Chasidim. That the Chasidim are stumbling over us. But when they published the tshuvas, the publisher felt very, very bad writing that change. So he switched it back to Paishim. Quote to the pasuk exactly. Yisharim Darach Hashem Tzadikim Yachvom Paishim Yichashkavam. The Rebbe apparently got very upset with the publisher. He said, "I made Paishim into Chasidim. I made sinners into Chasidim. You made my Chasidim into sinners. That's much worse. Like what you did is worse than what I did." So he was very upset about that change afterwards. But depends on the addition of the Rebbe Yehuda to see like which one exactly he's holding by. But okay, now you have to figure out what exactly does this mean. L'shem yichud kudsha b'richa shchita. So before we go further, we should note that the idea of being miyached the shem havai, being miyached Hashem, while it's true that we should not think that God is in pieces, that would be kfirah. That's apikosis, to think that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is somehow divisible. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not divisible. There is a mitzvah, the Rambam writes this in the Targum mitzvahs, which is to be miyached Hashem, Yichud Hashem. What exactly does the mitzvah of Yichud Hashem? So if you open up a Rabbeinu Yonah in Shar Tshuva, in Shar Gimel, this is also in the Sefer Charedim, they count a specific mitzvah of Yichud Hashem, liyachta. Says the pasuk, "V'yadata hayam v'ashavos elav ki Hashem hu ha'elokim hashamayim mimal va'aretz mitachas ein oid." V'yadata hayam, you should know today, v'ashavos elav return to your heart, that Hashem is Havaya, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, is Elokim, v'ashamayim, up in heaven, v'ashamayim mimal va'al ha'aretz, and on earth, mitachas ein oid, earth below, ein oid, there is nothing else. There is nothing else other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This says says Rabbeinu Yonah and the Sefer Charedim. This is a mitzvah b'fnei atzma, to be miyached Hashem, that all of the powers of the world, ultimately, the simple pshat of mitzvah, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all the powers in the world, all of the kochos in the world, are all ultimately rooted in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That Havaya hu ha'elokim, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is ha'elokim, meaning all of the powers of nature, is ultimately HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The way the Baal HaTanya writes this, he writes, "Ela she'yedias ha'metzius me ha'ishtalshelus gam ken mitzvah rabba." Knowing how HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, that there's a hishtalshelus, that there is a evolution of things, that Hashem willed the world into existence and then everything propagated from that. That's also a mitzvah rabbah, a great mitzvah, v'nisyan, and very high and elevated, v'adrab ola al kulona, k'mo shekasav v'yadat ayam, and it is amongst the greatest of mitzvahs. Meaning, yedias Hashem, to know Hashem means to be able to see and recognize Hashem in everything. And that ultimately, just to be very, very, to simplify things, take a lot of big sugyas and just contain this, is to understand that the mitzvah to be miyached Hashem is the mitzvah of recognizing and realizing that there is only one power in the world, and that is ultimately HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There are many things that are bits and pieces of the things that Hashem does in the world. That's hey, come on in. There's a lot of bits and pieces of things that Hashem does in the world, but ultimately everything is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what we say. Ein od milvad. Here we go. Let's get the man on the time. There we go, Tzaddik. Shkach, these guys have you here. Come. There's a mitzvah of Yedias Hashem, and that mitzvah of Yedias Hashem is to know that everything in the whole wide world, whether it be the sun, the wind, the rain, the moon, whatever, all of that is ultimately HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We've spoken about this within the context of Ramban in Parshas Yisro, that lo yelecha Elohim al chirim al panai, you should not have other gods. What's other gods? Are there other gods? Yes. Meaning that there are many, many other forces in nature that people could see as sources of power. Those are the Elohim achirim. That's how the Ramban explains, or the way that the Rebbeinu B'chai explains is just other things that people put as their apex priority in life, right? Everybody has the thing that they serve, right? How do you know that everybody has something that they serve? So I was having a conversation with a little while ago with somebody that told me that he was an atheist. So I said to him, I don't believe you.
You said it?
He said, that told me I'm an atheist. I said, I don't believe you. He said, Rabbi, with all due respect, which we all know what that means, right? With all due respect, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. So first I told him the line of the Kotzker, which is the best line about the atheism. Somebody once came to the Kotzker and said, I don't believe in Hashem, I don't believe in God. The Kotzker said to him, don't worry, the same God that you don't believe in, I also don't believe in. Right? Meaning, whatever you think God is and therefore don't believe in him, don't worry, you're wrong, I also don't believe in him. If you want to know the God that I do believe in, that's a separate conversation. Right? Meaning, your kfirah has got nothing to do with my emunah. But the point is that there's no such thing as an atheist because everybody believes in something as the goal and aim of their life. What's the proof to this? If you were to hand somebody a magic wand and say to them, that's a magic wand, thought experiment. If you could wave your magic wand and everybody in the world would now believe in something, whatever that thing is, or know something, or acknowledge something, or work towards something, what is that something? There is not a human being that has ever lived that doesn't have a something. Now, that thing could be Meshuggah, right? It could be like, everybody should save the whales. I'm not saying don't save the whales, but meaning your whole mahus, your whole existence in life could be about saving the whales. That's fine. You believe in that as a priority above all priorities. That's your God. Meaning, for you, the world is in a state of disrepair. And the tikkun of this world is achieved by saving the whales. So that's your God.
Like a code.
So what?
A code.
Yeah.
Set of principles.
Right, that's it. Meaning, at some point in time, you believe that the world will be better will be perfect, will be as good as it could possibly be if everybody does X. Everybody believes in X. Everybody works towards it. Whatever that thing is, that's your God. Whatever you think about creation or creation, do you believe in a trajectory of humanity? Do you feel a sense of mission and purpose for this? There's not a single person that doesn't. There's nobody that doesn't believe that the world could get better if. Which means that you also believe, Mr. Atheist, you also believe that everything is working towards something better and bigger, and you have oriented your life to face in that direction. Or maybe you believe that and you are disobeying it. That's also possible. You could believe in whatever your God is and then rebel against that God. And sometimes that's really the core of the atheism thing. It's a Rashi in Parshas Bechukosai, that people convince themselves out of believing in HaKadosh Baruch Hu because it's easier. So they rebel against God and pick another one. That's called Elohim Achirim. Those things are all sources of power. They give people meaning and purpose. They have gods to those people. The mitzvah of being miyached HaKadosh Baruch Hu is to understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the source of all of those things. Meaning all of the curses in the whole wide world, ultimately rooted in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All of it. All of the forces of the universe that people pay homage to and respect and worship. All of that is ultimately HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's in general the mitzvah of being miyached HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is to know that there is only one ultimate source of power. But that's not what we're saying here. That, the Rebbe Yehuda holds of. That's a mitzvah. What we're saying in L'Shem Yichud is something different. And in order to understand that, we have to understand what these words that we are saying are. L'Shem Yichud, Kudsha Brichu, Ushchinte. So you have to understand, first and foremost, what exactly does Kudsha Brichu mean? What does Kudsha Brichu mean? In Hebrew, that would be HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the Aramaic for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu mean? How do they? The Holy One, blessed be He, right? Love that. Because nobody knows what any of that means.
Reminds me of the Haggadah as a kid.
100%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if not for the Holy One, blessed be He, taking us out of bondage, right? It's the Haggadahs with the these and the thys and the those, right?
Yeah.
That's
That's what
right. It's at the Haggadah night. Rabbi Goldberg, Rabbi Masowitz asked me what Haggadah we use. I said we use the art scroll illustrated children's Haggadah for the whole table. everybody follows along. So he says, "You fancy?" We use Rabbi Goldberg said to me, "You fancy?" We use the Maxwell House Haggadah. So I said, "Look, I came to America. There was no Maxwell House Haggadah, and Nespresso doesn't make one yet. So that's I got Oscar. That's what I got. Right? There's no Nespresso Haggadah."
My cousin's on the cover of that with his son.
Maxwell House?
Yeah.
Good thought.
No, to be felt.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Is it like a different
the
sponsor every year?
Six Figures an actor. He's not from. He's an actor, and he's done a lot of print things and movies and this and that. And
He's in the Devil Wears Prada, right?
Yeah, he's in a bunch of things. But
Drinking coffee. Maxwell House, no?
He's a lawyer.
Yeah.
But he's on
What's
the
his name?
Tibby
Feldman.
Tibor Feldman.
Oh, okay. So
IMDb.
there you go. So what does Holy One Blessed Be He mean? What does Holy One Blessed Be? So these are strange words.
It's the male side of Hashem. Because Shekhinah is the feminine.
Okay, but what does that mean? I mean, what do the words Kadosh Baruch Hu mean?
It's the thing that acts as a force.
So how does that relate to the words HaKadosh Baruch Hu?
It's the source of all blessings, so the blessings flow from.
That might be the bracha part. What's the Kadosh part?
Separate.
Kedusha, separation.
Sanctified.
Holy One.
Oh, that's a Christian word.
Holy, right? Blessed is also, right?
Yes, it is. There's no good word for that.
So let's try to understand what the word Baruch Hu means. First, you have to understand what the word Kaddish means. So Kaddish, we've discussed a few times before. The word Kaddish means Parush Umuvda, right? Separated, elevated. The best translation of this, my Rabbi Blachman said this, the best translation of the word Kaddish is transcendent.
Not sanctified?
Sanctified is a piece of it. But also, sanctified is probably also a Christian word, right? Meaning, at least the context is.
Yeah, they're all Christian words.
Yeah.
Because before we use them, the Christians use them. We use Hebrew words.
So,
That's not very Christian.
no. But what do you mean by something being transcendent? It means that it is elevated and separated. It's Parasha Muvdal. That's the language of the Ramban. Parasha Muvdal. It's important to know that anytime that you find the concept of Kedusha, I don't know if we've discussed this in this Chabur before, but it's important to know. Anytime that we discuss the concept of Kedusha, Kedusha always means Isur. Forbidden. Whenever you find more Kedusha, you find more Isur. I'll give you an example. You have Olam, Shana, and Nefesh. So let's talk about Olam. In the world, in space. We live right now in Boca Raton, Florida. Boca Raton, Florida doesn't have Kedusha. If anything, there's Tumas Eretz Ha'amim. Eretz Yisrael has Kedusha. This is the Mishnah Masechtas Midos, that there are 10 madrigas of Kedusha in the world. Eretz Yisrael has Kedusha Sa'aretz. Because it has Kedusha Sa'aretz, there are certain mitzvahs that you have to do in Eretz Yisrael, and there are certain isur, things that you are not allowed to do in Eretz Yisrael. For example, if I want, I can grow grain here, harvest the grain, and bake a cake. In Eretz Yisrael, I can't eat the grain. That would be an isur d'oraisa. I need to first take off truma, and then meiser, and then Levi has to take Trumas Meiser, right? I have to take Meiser Sheni or Meiser Ani, and then I can eat it, right? Otherwise, Tevel. Tevel means produce from which I have not taken the tithes from it, and that is an Isur. Meaning, I have less accessibility to the grain of Eretz Yisrael. On a level of Daraisa, you have Orla in Eretz Yisrael. You have to wait 3 years. In Chutz La'aretz, we have Orla as well, but that's a Dimid Rabbanan. Orla's Chutz La'aretz. In Eretz Yisrael, you also have the Chiv of Chala. Right? I mean, there's mitzvahs of Peah, mitzvahs of Bikurim. I mean, there's a lot of mitzvahs that you have to do before you can eat fruit, before you can eat vegetables, before you can eat grain. Right? There's mitzvahs that you have to do in Eretz Yisrael. There's an Isur because there's a level of Kedusha. Yerushalayim has a high level of Kedusha than Eretz Yisrael, because in Yerushalayim, this is last expression, we'll just give one example. Yerushalayim, and Mitzorah is not allowed to be in the city of Yerushalayim. Mitzorah can be in Eretz Yisrael, but a Mitzorah cannot be in Yerushalayim, meaning it's an Isur.
What's Mitzorah?
Mitzorah is somebody that has leprosy, Saras.
Oh.
Right? Not actually, the Rosh writes that there's 10 differences between leprosy and
That's
Saras.
the city gates.
Right.
And then,
So-
in the New Testament.
Right. So, no, this is our Torah from last week.
Oh yeah.
That's I mean, the lepers would be not lepers. The first right said there's 10 differences. What?
Leper is a Christian
Right.
word.
So Mitzvah is the Jewish word, right? So the Mitzrayim would be kicked out of the city. Those were the ones that found the army of Sennacherib dead, right? The Syrian army was they went to bed alive and well, and they woke up dead, right? So yes, but the next morning, that's there you go. It's whoosh. It's okay. They all woke up dead the next morning. How did everybody know about this? So the 4 Mitzrayim that went to go find they said, let's go to the Syrian army, right? We're dying here, we're starving. It's a siege. We can't get food from Jerusalem. Nobody can come in and come out. So let's go to the Assyrians. Maybe they'll feed us. And then they got there and they found everybody's dead, right? So that
Mitzrayim.
right, Mitzrayim, right?
They forgot to put on their masks.
Right,
No.
the COVID. That's yeah,
No, they're Trump supporters.
exactly. It's geweldig. So these 4 Mitzrayim, they were kicked out of the camp, right? I mean, out of the camp means out of Yerushalayim. Further in of Yerushalayim, you have Harabais. Harabais is a high level of kedusha. Harabais, you are not allowed to be on Harabais if you are tameh, right? If you're tameh with any of the tumas of tumah yotzel of neguf. Say what?
Not supposed to wear shoes.
So that's in Azar, right? Harabais, you can still wear shoes, but then once you get to the Mikdash, the Tamei Meis is not allowed in. And then there's further sections where only Yisrael is allowed in. That's only a Jew is allowed in. And then you have the Ulam and the Heichal where only a Kohen is allowed in. And then you have the Kodesh HaKodashim, which only the Kohen Gadol is allowed in on Yom Kippur. Meaning, the more Kodesh the place is, the more Isurim it has. The more Yisurim it has. Talk about this in terms of time. So
how does this apply to something like Haneres Halal Kodesh?
what's the line after that? Haneres Halal Kodesh Ve'ein Lanu Rishus Lishtabish Bahem. You can't use them for anything else. They're Kodesh. It's the very next line. Ein Lanu Rishus Lishtabish Bahem. You can only look at them, you can't use them for anything. That's why you have a shamash, because you need to, it's not just to light other candles, it's so that if you need light, you have another light. You can't get enough. Because they're Kodesh. They're Kodesh. This is Tashmish Kedusha. You can't use for anything else. Because they're Kodesh. That's in place and objects. Let's talk about people for a second. This is important to know. There's something called Kedushas Yisrael. What does Kedushas Yisrael mean? Jewish people have a greater degree of Kedusha. Who has a higher level of Kedusha, men or women?
Women. Men.
That's the same. Why? Because while men are obligated in positive time-bound mitzvahs and women are not obligated in positive time-bound mitzvahs, both men and women are equally obligated in all of the Isurim of the Torah. Meaning there's not a single thing that is permissible for a man to do that's not permissible for a woman, or vice versa. We all have the same level of Kedushas Yisrael. Who has a high level of Kedushas Yisrael?
Kohanim.
The Kohen. Kohen has a high level of Kedusha, because they have a high level of Isur. The Kohen has certain things that they are not allowed to do. Kohen cannot marry whomever they want. And a Kohen cannot become Tamei. Become Tamei Meis. And higher than the Madriga of a Kohen is the Madriga of Kohen Gadol, who has even more of a limited selection for whom he is allowed to marry, and has an even more limited capacity to become Tamei Meis. He has a high level of Kedusha.
So who's more of the restriction on when it comes to, let's say, Trumas and Mises?
Everybody.
But I'm saying the Kohanim aren't as restricted as the Israelis.
They're the ones, he's saying they're the ones taking that.
So this is important to know. A Kohen is also not allowed to eat tevel. He can only eat once it becomes truma.
But they don't have to separate from their own fields?
A Kohen also has to.
They
If
also
a Kohen doesn't have a field, but in theory, a Kohen would have a field.
then they would have to.
Yeah, tevel is untithed produce, right? Meaning it's
Christian.
Yeah.
produce,
Isn't it tip?
That's high.
right?
That's tithe.
Right.
Listen to Dave Ramsey. You're tithe all the time.
Right. There you go.
He's pronouncing
Better than I deserve.
All right, so this explains why it's called Lashon HaKodesh.
Right.
So how do we justify it? Speaking Hebrew in Israel, even
That's
in
not
the
Lashon
yeshiva. How do you?
That's not Lashon
Why isn't
HaKodesh.
everyone walking around speaking Yiddish or French or something instead of just,
Plenty of people
you know, like
no.
pass me the macaroni? They're saying
So,
in Hebrew.
so this is important.
People,
So
But Hebrew wasn't watching Kodesh.
that's a
But
machlok.
that's like a
some of it is.
that's like mental gymnastics. It's not the
The-
same Hebrew that they spoke. There's a reason why if you speak Hebrew and you read the Chumash, you can understand more than half of what you're reading.
There are those that argue that we should only reserve Lashon Kodesh for learning and davening. But in the days of the Beis Hamikdash, for sure, everybody spoke Lashon Kodesh all the time. That was
Just
the
walk
language.
around and I thought that they specifically did not.
No, but that's the day. If you open up Megillah
In the
Rus,
Beis
not only
Hamikdash, yes. But
No.
outside,
yeah, if you open up in Megillah Rus, not only did they speak Lashon Kodesh, but they also would greet people b'Shem Hashem. They would say Baruch haba b'Shem Aleph Daled Nun Yud. That's how they would greet people. Meaning they were speaking in a way of kedusha all the time. The Rambam writes that one of the reasons that Lashon Kodesh is called Lashon Kodesh, Machlokes is Rambam Rabban, but the Rambam writes that one of the reasons that it's called Lashon Kodesh is because there are no organic words in Lashon Kodesh to refer to disgusting acts.
I was about to say there's no real curse words. They're all like
Right.
Arabic words.
Right, those are all borrowed. Right? Meaning all of those words are borrowed words. Lashon Kodesh doesn't have them. They are adopted from other languages. It's Kodesh because it is only used for things that people use in Kedusha.
like leg water.
What is that?
Oh,
It's leg water.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I thought you said light water. Yeah, I was like, what?
Leg water.
Right.
It's leg water.
Urine. Meiraglayim, right?
Well, there's
Right.
words.
Urination.
There's
Right.
words that are not nice, but they're not
Well, they're not
intrinsically,
there.
you know.
Right. So I'm saying
like a
unclean words
prostitute
don't
or a
exist.
Female dog, you know.
Right. So those words don't exist. Don't exist in Lashon Kodesh. So those words says the Rambam. That's kedusha. Let's talk about that in just high. What's higher than a kohen gadol, by the way?
The Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur.
Well, I'm saying, but
There's nothing.
so
Aaron.
close is also the
Is
nun.
it Melech?
Would Aaron have been considered?
Mashiach.
No, come on,
It's like the first Kohen Gadol would have been that.
Nazir, a Nazir kohen gadol, because a Nazir takes on additional issue.
What's another?
Nazir is the guy that says that he's not going to drink wine and
But
he's not
he's
going
not
to cut his
supposed
hair.
to be doing that.
Right.
either.
That's Shimshon.
That's a
That's what I'm saying.
machlokes. That's a machlokes. Also Rambam Rabban. So like Chachma putting the two together.
He was
just-
from Dan.
We should become Nazir. We'll all be super.
So Nazir kohen gadol has a higher level of
I'll never cut my hair again.
so that's
Unless
Does
they-
it count, Rabbi?
brave of you to say now. Right? The
Drinking wine is hard.
so Nazir kohen gadol is the highest level of kedusha that a person
Were
could.
there Nazir Kohen Gadol's?
In theory. In theory, I mean, the Gemara talk about the possibility of an Nazir kohen gadol. Nevertheless, the that's the idea of kedusha. Kedusha, whenever you find kedusha, you find Israel, which is why the first stage of marriage is called kedusha. What do you say in kedusha? Asher kedushanim v'sasav v'tzivanu al ha'arayos v'yitir lanu v'nesuas al yidei chuppah v'kedusha. Meaning, what you say is, you're mikudeshesly with this ring means separated and made asr. Meaning, through this union, we are having an exclusive union where you are no longer married, possible to get married to anybody else. That's called kiddushin. Whenever you find kiddushin, what you are finding is isurim. When we say kiddush on Shabbos, what we are acknowledging, acquiescing to, is that this day has kiddusha. And when a person would be mekadesh something to the Beis Hamikdash, what would that do to that thing?
It's also used any other way.
Can't use it for anything else. And if I do, that would be an isur me'ilah of stealing from temple property. Meaning, whenever you find kedusha, you find is. What's the opposite of kedusha? If kedusha makes something asur, what makes it mutter?
You taught this before.
What makes it mutter? Smichas Chava, you're learning Hilchos Brachos, right?
Just started.
So the Gemara says,
Oh,
"Kol hanenem min ha'olam,
Fresh
ha'olam hazeh,
yeah.
b'lo bracha ki'ilu ma'al." Anybody that enjoys from this world without making a bracha is as if they have stolen from the property of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Something is asur. How do you make it mutter?
You make
Through
a
a bracha. Bracha. What does bracha mean? Blessed. What does blessed mean?
It means it's
There's two connotations. It either means berech, a knee. The word bracha means to kneel. Or bracha from the language brecha, a pool, a spring. Both of those, the connotation is accessibility. When you kneel, what do? You are coming down. And a brecha is something that flows towards you, right? When we make a bracha in the Shemona Esrei, we bend our knees at the word baruch, because what we are saying is, I recognize you, Hashem, are the source of bracha, meaning that everything in my life comes from you. You are the source of everything. And I am experiencing that. And I'm requesting more of that. I'm acknowledging that. In philosophical language, what that means, just before we get there, there's a medrash, the Medrash Rabbah in Parshas Bereshis, spells this out exactly as we said. Pasuk says, "Vayivarach Elokim es yom hashvi vayikadosh oseh." Says the Medrash Rabbah, "Vayivarach Elokim es yom hashvi." Hashem gave bracha to the seventh day. But the man fell down twice on Yom HaShishi, on Erev Shabbos. Vayikadosh oseh, but it didn't fall down on Shabbos. Meaning, the man fell down extra. That's a bracha for Shabbos. But it didn't fall on Shabbos because Shabbos Kodesh. Meaning, more is called bracha. Restriction is called Kodesh. Right? When I get more, when you give somebody a bracha, what you're saying is, you should have something. When you mekadesh something, you're saying this thing is inaccessible. Right? You're being asur. Now that thing is asur. What's the philosophical language like? If you take a look at Kant, for example, he talks about transcendence and immanence. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is kadosh. That means transcendent. But he's also Baruch, means immanent. Transcendent means inaccessible. Kadosh Baruch Hu is Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. What does Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh mean? What does it mean?
3 times inaccessible.
Super duper duper inaccessible. What does it mean? So you say this every day in Valencia. We translate what Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh means.
Is that from Daniel?
Say what?
From Daniel?
So Pasuk says as follows: Malachim call to each other. They cry out, "Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh, Hashem Tzavakas, Malach Haaretz Kavod." It's the Pasuk in Yeshaya. We translate as follows: What is? We say "V'karos el zav v'amar," that they call out to each other. We translate that "Umekablim dein min dein v'amrim." They receive from each other. And they exclaim, Kaddish, the first Kaddish, Kaddish b'shmei merayma ilah beis shchinte. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Kaddish above. Above all things above, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Kaddish. Kaddish al ara oivad burte. And he is Kaddish down on earth, which is oivad burte, which is a creation of his power. And then we say Kadosh la'olam la'olmei olmaya. He is Kadosh for now and forever and ever. for all worlds into eternity. Hashem Tzvakas Malya Kol Ara Ziv Yikarei. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Hashem Tzvakos, means the Lord of hosts. What does that mean? Lord of hosts. Malya Kol Ara Ziv Yikarei. The whole world is filled with the beauty of his covered, of his honor. And the whole world is filled. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Kadosh, 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 means Kadosh in Shemaim, means in the metaphysical realm. Is Kadosh on earth, in the physical realm. And is Kadosh beyond all space and time. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is infinitely, spatially, temporally Kadosh. He is the ultimate expression of inaccessible. You can't pin him down. He's beyond us. And then we say, Baruch Kavod Hashem Imkom. So what does Baruch mean? So here they translate, blessed is the honor of Hashem. Baruch Yikarad Hashem Me'asar Beis Shchinte. That Hashem is Baruch from Atar Beis Shchinte, from the place of the house of his presence. Meaning that he is somehow or another accessible. Somehow or another we can appreciate this. Meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kadosh, is infinitely beyond anything that we can possibly imagine. Baruch, what word do you normally say after the word Baruch? Atah. What does Atah mean? You.
Second person.
I can talk to that thing which is infinitely transcendent. Right? Infinitely transcendent. Because Baruch Hu is Kadosh and Baruch. Now, we have a problem with understanding that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is both Kadosh and Baruch. I'll give you the following example. We have things in the world that are transcendent, meaning totally inaccessible. Things that exist everywhere in the universe at all times. I'll give you an example. 1 + 1 = 2. Where?
Everywhere. Yes.
Everywhere. Right?
Lord of math, physics, whatever.
That's it. Meaning that is a truth. Where is that truth true?
Yes.
Right? Where is this truth true? It's true everywhere. 1 + 1 does = 2. That is a truth. That is unadulteratable truth. It is everywhere. From the beginning of the universe to the end of the universe, till the heat death of all things, there will be one lonely electron on one side of the expanded universe and another lonely electron somewhere on the other. There will be 2 electrons, right? 1 + 1 = 2. That is a transcendent principle of mathematics. And then you have things that are accessible. This is a book. It's accessible. Where is this book?
On the table.
Here.
Here. When is this book? Now. Is this book anywhere else? No. Is it any other time? No. Meaning, it could perpetuate for a little longer. It could go places. But accessibility means that that thing is in the here and now, here and now. Not somewhere else and later, otherwise it's inaccessible. Right? Baruch means here and now. And our world divides up into things that are Kadosh and things that are Baruch. Right? We have things that are transcendent, we have things that are immanent. Certain things are accessible and certain things are inaccessible. But all of the things that are transcendent, that transcend time and space, are inaccessible. You can't. Where is 1 + 1 = 2? You can't pick it up, put it in an envelope, mail it to your friend.
But it can be accessible in this moment, in this time, and in this place.
Meaning-
it's not necessarily contradictory.
No,
One
you
plus one
can
is
you
a
can
concept.
you can express it.
One's a concept and one is a tangible thing.
Correct.
It exists in
You
your
cannot
mind.
show someone a concept. You
Correct.
can only give an example.
You can express a concept,
Sure.
right? But it's abstract.
Correct.
It's kaddish, meaning it's inaccessible
Correct.
in the sense that you have
Unless
no
you make a
control over it.
bracha. So you have to make a bracha before you do 1 plus 1.
So the only thing that we have and this is the reason that we struggle with understanding HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is because he is both Kaddish and Baruch. The only thing in existence that is both Kaddish and Baruch. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is inside and outside of existence simultaneously. He is inside of existence, but he is also beyond existence. He's Kaddish beyond anything, but he's also imminently, persistently filling all of existence. This is what the Zohar Kaddish explains. That is Mamale Kol Almin V'Sovev Kol Almin. He fills all worlds and he surrounds all worlds. V'leis Oto Panim Minen. There's no space that is devoid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem is surrounding everything, filling everything, and everything is an expression of the will of Hashem. But that is impossible for us to conceive of because nothing else in our experience is both abstract and accessible. Concepts exist everywhere. Stuff exists somewhere. And then we say that this thing called Hashem is both Kaddish and Baruch. How? How is Hashem both Kaddish and Baruch?
That in itself is proof that it's a unique, whatever you want to call it, entity.
So,
Because it's the only thing
right.
that makes it easier to understand that it does exist.
So this is interesting. Usually we follow the word Baruch with the word Atah. But not when we say HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why not HaKadosh Baruch Atah? Right? Because the word Hu, the Gra points out many sugis in Shas. So in Nashim Ki Hu Zet, meaning that you can. Hu means Hebrew word. Hu means he. Where is he?
There.
Somewhere else.
Not here.
As opposed
Right?
To, yeah. Not
You are here. He
Unless you're being rude.
is right. He is not here. Right? Meaning, it's in Hebrew. This is what's called lashon nistar. Lashon nistar literally means third person, but I mean it uses third person, but lashon nistar means hidden. Meaning, nochach is you, nistar is him. Where's him? Not here. Whenever you say that something is who, what you're saying is, I can't define it. I can talk about it, but it's not something I can point to, right? It's not something that I can put my finger on. I can talk about it. I can address it. But Kadosh, Hashem is infinitely transcendent. Baruch is infinitely immanent. Who? Him. Not you. I call it him.
It also can be like a relatable personal being we could speak about, like, in that sense.
Right, but you can't.
It's
You can't say it to
third,
you.
It's third person. I get compared to the atah, but
Correct.
also it can be like we can relate to him in that word of saying that. Like
Correct, but you can't relate to it as second person. You can't talk to Hashem in second person like that,
No.
right? Something that is infinitely transcendent.
It would also be insincere. You don't speak to someone that way if you're sincere about something.
Correct.
Like you'll never plead with someone in the third person.
Yeah, I mean, people do that like in
Some
terms
people
of
miss-
like meaning enduring respect,
Yeah, people
like
speak
His
like
Majesty.
His Majesty or the Rav.
Right.
But
Speaking in
that's
the third person.
like
That's a different thing.
that's not the
show
same thing.
respect.
That's not considered third person. That's more of how people refer to someone, like even in Spanish, where you have usted and usted is like instead of
Right, meaning because you don't want to say you don't want to point.
you, like
In Yiddish,
Yeah.
you address
all
someone,
of you.
Right.
as ear instead of
Do.
Yeah.
Right? You're supposed to do.
But
That
that's
was the.
respectful. But I don't see a problem. I think the fact that Hashem is the only thing with that particular dual set of principles or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
I think it's easier to comprehend that knowing that it's the only thing
Correct.
like that.
But
You just have to accept it. Don't
correct.
try and figure
It means that ultimately, when we say Hakadosh Baruch Hu, what we are saying is a statement of immense weight theologically. When we refer to Hashem as Hakadosh Baruch Hu, this is our theology of God. It is very lofty, right? This is
Yet also accessible.
well. But that contradiction is impossible for us to comprehend.
That doesn't mean you can't accept it just because you can't
Correct,
comprehend it.
100%.
I think it's like really descriptive of what a lot of what God is and what this world is.
Yes,
Things can exist and not exist at the same time.
100%.
It's the duality and paradox of like everything.
Meaning Hakadosh Baruch Hu is paradoxical. That's the
Yeah.
point, and that's why you say who, because it's a paradox.
It's like
What you're saying is he's Kadosh and he's Baruch. How? I don't know. He is. That's the truth. Right, and that's it. That's all that we can say is that he is Kadosh and Baruch, and I don't know how to put those two things together. He's infinitely Kadosh and infinitely Baruch, and I don't get it. That is my theoretical understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because he is well beyond me. He's infinitely beyond me, and infinitely present, and infinitely immanent. So what does Shechinte mean? Shechinte means my lived experience of me, where I am doing the thing that I'm doing in the world of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when we talk about being miyachid, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ushchinte, to say this very simply, what we are saying is, what I would like to attempt to do is to bring my theoretical concept of God into my lived experience. I have a grand theology of an infinite being that is infinitely Kadosh, infinitely Baruch, infinitely paradoxical and perplexing. And yet, I'm about to do something in this world that is somehow or another meaningful to that infinite being, and I don't understand it. And what I would like to do is to translate, to download that theology into my lived experience, that I should be acting out my theology. I should be acting out my philosophy. That this is not just an action. This is not just, as some would argue, a cultural nicety. That it's an observance of some, ancient Hebraic practice. What I'm doing is I am performing a theological, philosophical act of meaning. And that's a heavy statement. What I'm saying is, I'm not just doing something. The thing that I'm doing is a representation of the deepest beliefs and understandings that I have about God and the universe. And me within this.
It's transformative.
Right. This is the thing that I'm attempting to do. And when you say L'shem Yichud Kol Shebrichu Ushchinte, for the sake of unifying my philosophy, it's not God that you put it together. God is Echad Yochad Yochad. What you're doing is you're saying, I spent most of my life in a splintered, fractured, fragmented reality, where, as we've spoken about in the world of Avodah Zarah, that there's God of the bedroom and God of the boardroom and God of the Beis Medrash, right? God is, I believe in the sun God, so then when the sun sets, I can do whatever I want. We do that too. We have HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that lofty, elevated. But he doesn't care when I'm filling out my taxes. Right? He's too lofty and elevated, and blessed be he. And this act that I'm doing, well, what does it do? Okay, so, it's good. It's good to fit in with the cultural trappings of Orthodoxy. L'shem yichud kudsha b'richu shchinte means I would like to stop living such a fragmented, broken, compartmentalized life. That this thing that I'm doing, which is filling the world with the presence of God through the performance of my mitzvah, that I am acting as an Eved Hashem, is an Eved of Hashem kudsha b'richu. I'm doing something, it is personally transformative in the performance of this activity. That's what I'm trying to achieve here. L'shem yichud kudsha b'richu shchinte. And this now needs to be done, the attempt at this unity, b'dechilu, with fear, rechimu, and with love. Dechilu means with an appreciation of the awesomeness of Hashem, in whatever way I can muster that. Rechimu means with love, means because I am in love with Hashem. And I'm expressing the love that Hashem has for me. That this infinite, transcendent, immanent, paradoxical being cares about me and created me with mind, body, and soul, with capacities, capabilities, and purpose. And I stand in awe of him, fearing him and nothing but him, recognizing, experiencing, and expressing the infinite love that an infinite God has in creating me. That's the introduction to the mitzvah. This is before we even talk about Yud He and Vav He, which we'll probably get to next week. But pshat in the words that you're saying, L'shem yichud kudsha b'richu shchinte, is a heavy philosophical statement. B'dechilu u'rechim, with love, with fear and with love. In the words of the Balatanya, love that is beyond the love of all things, and fear that is beyond the fear of all things. That I'm not doing this out of love for a social status, or to have the right kind of friends. And I'm not afraid that, I'm not going to get a shidduch if I don't, say serious over. No. Because I'm standing in awe and trepidation of the Melech Malcha Hamlacha HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and filled with a overwhelming sense of affection that I'm experiencing and that I am returning. That's the L'shem Yichud. Which is why Rabbi Blachman would say to Chabra, if you don't, the Anshe Knesset Gadol didn't say you have to say L'shem Yichud. It's not one of the tefillos that you have to say. But if you're going to say it, you should at least try to feel it. At least try to think about it. Like, what am I saying here? You see sometimes there's people like, what happens is certain shuls say L'shem Yichud, certain shuls don't. So what happens in the shuls where they don't say L'shem Yichud? What does everybody that does say it do? Right? Which is exactly not the point, right?
The Ashkenazi special.
Right? I mean, this is chick chuck, we got to get out of here, right?
Watermelon.
That's it. That's
Why don't we say L'shem Yichud, for example, at the beginning of davening every morning, or in
You gotta get to work.
by the way,
Some do.
Or in the beginning of Marv.
in many siddurim they do.
Why not in the beginning of Marv?
Meaning, if you open a many siddurim, they have it. By all the mitzvahs.
Where else do you, I'm trying to think of where else you would say it. Not just by Sphira.
Open up your siddur by putting on talis and tefillin in the morning. L'shem Yichud.
Hey, let's add
Right? The people that say L'shem Yichud before benching.
It's like being
Anytime that you have a mitzvah. Midaraisa, Midarawan, people say L'shem Yichud. By lighting Chanukah, people say L'shem Yichud, right? There's certain places that it became more popular.
At certain places, it dropped out also.
Right.
Kabbalistic places.
Right. So, but the point is, yes, we haven't even gone into the Kabbalistic part. This is like Moreh Nevuchim. This is like Rambam. This is Jewish philosophy.
I was saying that all of this reminded me of Rambam's whole the idea of that we don't say things for Hashem. We say things for ourselves to remind ourselves of those things, almost like a mantra.
Right.
So you're saying it not because you're blessing him or you're saying, oh, let me bless you. It's you're saying, remind yourself, he's separated, but also he's accessible. So don't get too comfortable. Don't say Hashem's name in vain all the time. But if you need something, he's here for you.
I mean, the L'Shem Yichud is not a tefillah.
What's the purpose of it?
It's a kavanah.
It's exactly
that's a mantra. A bracha, however, is not a mantra. That is a conversation with Hashem. When you say L'Shem Yichud Kudsha Baruch Hu Shchinte, what you're saying is you're saying that to yourself.
Well, the bracha is an acknowledgement that you're allowing me to.
Right, but you and me, right? There's a you and there's a me. I'm talking to Hashem. Right. That meaning that's a conversation. The bracha is a conversation. The L'Shem Yichud is a meditation. It's a thing that I'm going to think about before I have that conversation with you. It's preparing my notes before I talk to the king. Right? What am I trying to do here? Like, sometimes you have a meeting, and then you think about at the beginning of the meeting, what are the goals of the meeting? That's the L'Shem Yichud. What is the goal of this conversation that I'm about to have? I'm saying a bracha, and I'm going to do something. I'm going to do an act. A verbal act, right? I'm going to count the days of the Omer. Why am I counting the days of the Omer? Because this, somehow or another, that's the point, is supposed to close the gap between my theory of God and my lived experience. That's why I'm doing this. That's my attempt. And all mitzvahs ultimately are trying to do that. Are trying to close the gap between our theory and our lived experience. Because Judaism is not just about creed, it's about deed. We do things. It is a performative religion of obligations. We do stuff. And in that doing stuff, we are achieving things. We are changing things. What are we trying to achieve and to do in the counting of Sfiras Omer? This. L'Shem Yichud Kudsha Baruch Hu Shchinte. That's what I would like to achieve in doing this thing. That's the goal. How exactly you do that? So we'll have to figure out next time.